Hi, I'm Dr. Bethany Cummings. I'm a professor here at UC Davis. I am jointly appointed in the School of Medicine and the School of Veterinary Medicine. And I run a lab that studies metabolic disease, and I direct the Veterinary Scientist Training Program here at UC Davis, and I'm excited to talk more about the program today.
I'm Eleanor Pressman, normally I just go by Elle, and I am a DVM PhD student, or I guess candidate now, and I am in my 5th year overall of the program, so that means that I've done 2 years of vet school, and I'm in the 3rd year of my PhD now, and I'm doing my PhD research in Dr. Ermias Cabrab's lab, which is in the Department of Animal Science here, and I'm sure I'll talk more about my research in a moment. But briefly, I study cows and enteric methane emissions. And I'm excited to hopefully wrap up my PhD soon and then head back to vet school and finish out the DVM degree.
Our VSTP program, the overall goal is to train the next generation of veterinary scientists. And specifically what we do is we provide our trainees a pathway with which to get both their DVM and their PhD in an integrated manner. And so who would benefit from the program? Really anyone who's interested in veterinary medicine and interested in research and interested in combining these should consider applying to our program. And I really encourage folks to reach out to me. I'm always excited to talk to people about career paths in veterinary medicine, whether it's through VSTP or other pathways as well. But of course, VSTP is a good pathway to go with. And I guess to go into a little bit more detail on how the program works. So the typical path through the VSTP program, like Elle was explaining, is that you'll enter the program, you'll do your first 2 years of vet school, and then you'll go into your PhD portion of your program. And that generally lasts around 4 years, and then you go back and you finish the last 2 years of vet school. So the idea is that the time to degree is on average 8 years. And we provide a lot of support throughout the program, a lot of mentoring and programming and financial support that we can talk about, I guess, in more detail as we go through the interview today.
I decided to do a DVM PhD program. When I was growing up, I always wanted to be a vet. Like most vet students you talk to, I loved animals growing up, and I also loved being outside, so I always kind of saw myself being an equine vet. But when I got to college, I started taking a lot of environmental science classes, which I became really passionate about. And I feel like I kind of started doubting my path because I was confronted with all these really big issues in the world that we were learning about in, environmental science, atmospheric science, mostly about climate change and all of the kind of things that come along with it, like loss of biodiversity and ocean acidification, all of that. And I felt like maybe the scope of veterinary medicine was too limited to address those problems that I really felt like I wanted to address. So I kind of pivoted and I got into atmospheric chemistry research and worked with climate models, and also worked in an ecology lab, as both of these were as an undergrad, and so I was learning about basically how the climate can be affected by different choices that farmers were making, and that was in the context of crop farming and basically applying nitrogen fertilizers, and those actually get lost to the atmosphere as nitrous oxide, which is a powerful greenhouse gas. So that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me when I realized that individual producers making choices about fertilizer use actually was contributing to climate change. And then kind of like the next step was like, oh my gosh, well there are animals that producers work with too that are also climate forcers and greenhouse gas producers, which is of course, among other animals, cattle, dairy and beef cattle. So I feel like when all those experiences kind of came together, I was like, there's a way for me to be a vet, to work with animals, which I want to do, to be outside and also do research that is interesting to me and feels really important in terms of addressing global issues that I care about a lot.
Many, lots of career options and paths after you complete the DVM PhD program with us. In general, folks are going off into careers where they're pursuing both veterinary medicine and incorporating research, which is kind of the goal of the program. And I'm really proud that the program's been so successful in this regard. Over 80% of our trainees are in careers where they're using their research training. More specifically, folks are going off into careers in academia, in government, in industry, and nonprofit, and making important contributions to a variety of fields and disciplines. So really kind of the world is your oyster, and you have a lot of options when you complete the program, and we're kind of here to help talk you through those options and figure out, you know, where you might want to go next, and offer a lot of programming to help with that too. So for example, we have this like monthly journal club that we hold jointly with the MD PhD program, and we let that journal club be very student driven, so that we make sure that the topics that we're talking about really are addressing what the students want to talk about and need in that moment in time. And a lot of times we do sessions related to career development, networking, science communication, but career development and career opportunities is a big one. And I think one of our upcoming journal clubs will actually be on that specific topic, bringing in alumni from the program to talk to us about, you know, what they've been doing and how they figured out their path and that kind of stuff.
So, like I mentioned, right now I'm in the graduate school years of the dual degree program, so I'm kind of in the thick of doing my dissertation research. So I'll just talk a little bit about what my dissertation is about. So like I mentioned, I'm in Dr. Ermias Cabrab's lab, which is in the Department of Animal Science. Here at UC Davis, our lab focuses on sustainable animal agricultural production and various ways of either, you know, assessing the sustainability of animal production or improving the sustainability. So specifically, as I mentioned, these days people are thinking a lot about cattle and the methane that they produce. And one of the big sources, enteric methane, which is methane that's produced in the rumens of cattle. And these days, people are starting to understand more about how that methane is actually produced, kind of in terms of the microbial populations and the enzymes and whatnot that lead to that. So people are developing feed additives that either like specifically target different aspects of the methanogenesis pathway or otherwise modify the rumen environment to make less methane be produced. So my lab does a lot of testing of different methane inhibiting feed additives, which I think is super exciting work. There's all sorts of different feed additives that you can feed to dairy and beef cattle that make them produce less methane, and, you know, therefore decrease the greenhouse gas impact of dairy and beef production. And then what my research is specifically on is actually trying to mathematically model kind of all the processes in the rumen that lead to methane being produced, because how much methane is produced is dependent on a lot of different interacting factors, like what the animal eats and what feed additive you're feeding and how it works specifically, and kind of the different microbial populations in the rumen, things like that. So in order to like test each and every one of those variables in real cows, it would take a lot of time and a lot of graduate student labor. So instead, a mathematical tool or a mathematical model is a really good tool for kind of tweaking each of those different variables to see in what setting a methane inhibiting feed additive would be most effective at stopping methane production. So my dissertation research is basically developing and testing a really complicated model that's able to do that.
Yeah, sure. I guess I might kind of go all the way back. I think there's some similar themes with what Elle was telling us about her path. So I also always wanted to be a veterinarian, loved animals, had tons of pets growing up, and then went to college. And I started doing research really just because I wanted to get more animal experience. And so I started doing research on metabolic disease, using animal models, and fell in love with the research aspect of things, and then got to the end of college and was like, I want to do both. And was fortunate to figure out that there were a couple of DVM PhD programs in the country at the time, and fortunate to get into actually the program here at UC Davis. So I did my DVM PhD here at Davis. It was an amazing experience. And one of the things that I kind of grappled with as I was going through the program was figuring out how to really capitalize off of both degrees. I knew I wanted to keep studying metabolic disease, but I wanted to figure out a way to really bring in the DVM training that I was going through. And I was really excited to find out in the clinical literature at the time that surgeons were starting to recognize that bariatric surgery, like gastric bypass, is causing this remarkable effect to cause high rates of type 2 diabetes remission in their patients. And it wasn't just because of the weight loss. They generally were experiencing diabetes remission pretty much immediately after surgery. And so I was like, oh, this is a really great opportunity or question to go after. If we can understand how these surgeries work, maybe we can identify some new drug targets for diabetes treatment. And so it gave me an opportunity to kind of bridge my veterinary training and my research even more by creating rodent models of bariatric surgery to do some of this work of identifying therapeutic targets. And that ended up being a question that's really driven much of my research career. Anyway, so I finished my training here. And then soon after that, I got recruited to Cornell University, to their vet school. And that's where I started my lab, and I taught vet students. And of course, always have a lifelong passion for clinician scientist training. So I was very involved in their DVM PhD program out there. But then UC Davis kind of was calling and recruited me back, actually this time to School of Medicine in the Department of Surgery. And that was to help create a new center focused on metabolic disease research and bariatric surgery. So kind of working with the clinicians doing bariatric surgery and then using other model systems and animal models to, again, answer this question of how do these surgeries work. And I think that's a really good example of how DVM PhD training really can take you a lot of different places and have impact, of course, on veterinary medicine, but beyond, on human medicine, on the environment, in a lot of different places. Anyway, so I came back here to UC Davis, and then about a year ago, the vet school reached out to me because they wanted a new director for the DVM PhD program, and so here I am.
Of course, this is the only DVM PhD program that I've ever been in, but I have had a lot of opportunities to talk with peers at other institutions and different dual degree programs through involvement in kind of like organized dual DVM PhD student associations, which has been a really cool part of grad school. But anyhow, so from, of course, experiencing other programs when I was looking for where I would go, and then since being here, I think one thing that I really have appreciated about Davis Davis's VSTP program in particular is kind of the freedom and like the creativity I think there is in kind of letting students go down the path that they want to go down. And so as I mentioned, my research is on agricultural species, and it's also more geared towards kind of a One Health framework, or even more focuses on the environmental health aspect, animal health aspect, than kind of the human health aspect of like the One Health triangle. And I do feel like Davis really fully embraced that aspiration for me. I know that Davis is an institution that kind of has been at the forefront of thinking about One Health, and I just remember getting the impression that programs at other schools, maybe their scope felt a little bit more limited. And of course, biomedical and translational research is so important, and it's a huge strength of having the veterinary training, is being able to do the comparative medicine research. But I also think that there is a lot more that veterinarians and veterinary scientists are trained to do than kind of think about animal health as only vis-a-vis human health. Like there's so much more to think about that we're trained to be able to do, and I really feel like Davis has given me the opportunity to really go down that path. And just in terms of kind of like the agricultural research resources, Davis has here, like, you can study any species that you want to, and there's a research facility for it. So like for my work, I get to work at the feedlot, at the dairy, here on campus, but then it's also like you don't give up all of the other resources, like the medical school and all that has to offer. And it's really cool that every month we get to, as students, have a conversation with the MD PhD students and kind of find common ground on issues that we're all interested in. So I would say that is what has made the program here really special and different to me.
Yeah, really great answer. I guess to add to that, I guess I'll add my perspective kind of a little bit more zoomed out over the years. I kind of alluded to it as I was talking about my own path. But yeah, when I was first looking for a DVM PhD program, there weren't a lot of DVM PhD programs in the country. So one thing I really want to highlight is just, I think it's a really exciting time for DVM PhD training in general. There are so many more programs now, and there are some really great established programs, and all of these programs are on the up and up. And I think that a lot of these programs are very collaborative and trying to help each other out in building our training programs and stuff like that. So I think just DVM PhD training nationwide, I think, is really strong, and it's just exciting to see how much it's growing. Specific to Davis, I think there are a lot of great attributes to the VSTP program at Davis. I think one that really deserves a highlight is we have fantastic students, but in all seriousness, we really have a lovely cohort of students that are all here for the right reasons, supportive of one another, supportive of the program, and really are what make, I think, our program great. Another thing I would highlight is our program's been around for a while now. So our program is the second oldest program in the country. It started in the year 2000, so we're coming up on 24 years. And we have a pretty substantial base of alumni now, which I think is both helpful for our students and also helpful for us in terms of information gathering, like what are we doing right, where can we improve and stuff like that. And so our alumni outcomes have been pretty remarkable, with a lot of our alumni going into research-related careers, a lot of our alumni kind of filling faculty positions in veterinary schools across the country. Our program, I think, has been really helpful in moving the veterinary education mission forward. So yeah, I think those are my highlights to add on top of everything Elle said. Yeah, I guess maybe to reinforce one of the things Elle talked about, UC Davis as a whole just has so many different facets of research going on, and our students are involved in almost all of them, which is awesome and something I'm so proud of. And I think that's facilitated by, everything's, pretty close. The med school, it's in Sacramento, but that's not far away, really. And everything else is really centralized at Davis. So if you want to do research in ag, we've got amazing research there. If you want to do something that's more human, we've got amazing research there. And then, of course, we have the vet school if you want to be doing applied research in veterinary species, which is also amazing, and so much more that I'm not really have time to get into. Yeah, and I'd love to hear Elle's thoughts on this too, but in general, when students come into the program, we try to make them aware of the diversity of research opportunities that UC Davis has to offer, and encourage them to explore all those opportunities, including opportunities in research and in livestock species. And there's a couple different venues for that at UC Davis. So of course there's amazing research going on here at the vet school, but also in other colleges, and departments, including the animal science department. So lots of research opportunities that our students have available to them.
Yeah, just to kind of touch back on a lot of things we've been talking about, I think that the opportunities for focusing more on livestock or food animal species is facilitated by the fact that VSTP really allows you to explore any kind of biological field you would want to do your research in, and then also the fact that at Davis everything is kind of so interdisciplinary that right here we're sitting at the vet school, across the street is the dairy, the feedlot's down the street, and also the teaching hospital is right there, which has a full livestock internal medicine and surgery service. So there's a lot of opportunities, and Davis's graduate training itself is organized into graduate groups, which are kind of different from the departmental silos. So it's already very interdisciplinary. In my graduate group, there are a lot of faculty who are at the vet school. Some are based down in Tulare at the dairy research facility. So all of those resources are there, open to the VSTP students. And yeah, so I think that the resources are there, and VSTP just kind of facilitates them by helping us identify the resources, identifying mentors that would be good as PhD advisors, even starting with the STAR research program. I mean, that was where I kind of first dipped my toe into the ag research that was going on here at Davis, and kind of got a lay of the land of the labs and who I would maybe want to do my PhD with. So there's a lot of good options.